the vote for National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations is inching closer. Now that we've aired our interviews with all 6 candidates in the fast-approaching election for National Chief, our Truth in Politics panel is here after a brief hiatus to discuss what happens next. Carrie Benjo is the editor of Eagle Feather News, and Negon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Carrie, Negon, good to have you back with us this week. Carrie, let's start with you. What do you think of the current crop of National Chief hopefuls?
I think it's a really good crop to choose from. We have 2 from Saskatchewan, 2 from Manitoba, Alberta, and Ontario. I think that really speaks to the importance that this National Chief is going to have within Canada. I think there's a lot of people looking now for very strong leadership coming from the AFN, because I think people are really tired of what transpired over the last couple of years when it came to AFN, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens and who makes it out on top.
Negon, who do you think might be the front runner, or do you have any predictions on who might win?
I think there's 3 main stories that are emerging in this National Chief election. The first is how much support is left behind for Reginald Belrose. And I think that coming second to former National Chief Roseanne Archibald, how much support is there left for what has been a pretty good run, a pretty solid run as leader for Belrose, and has a pretty solid platform, but probably the best platform that you're seeing, the most extensive by far, is by David Pratt. So you have to look to his very extensive website and see in the series of interviews that were on this channel, David Pratt was probably the best performer out of all of those videos. And then a close third, I think, is Cindy Woodhouse. Cindy Woodhouse is a block of support from Perry Bellegarde, from being a very close ally with Perry Bellegarde, and in many ways would be a return back to the time of Perry Bellegarde. And of course, Cindy has a lot of good credibility coming out of the CFS negotiations. And so those are the really 3 big stories. I think the other big story that might be kind of quietly is this might be Sheila North's last opportunity to enter into the field of Indigenous politics in terms of being a chief. I mean, she's run a number of times for Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. She's run notably and done well at the National Chief election, but never has been able to quite get over the finish line. And so that will be a story that I think we'll be watching kind of on the side. But I really think it's those 3 candidates who are leading right now. I think Belrose is probably leading, with Pratt and Woodhouse right behind.
Carrie, you spoke about how important you think this election is, and that others do as well. But how effective would you say the AFN has been over the last few decades, though?
I think for me, like, one of the biggest things that has stood out over the history has been the work AFN has done in terms of the residential school file. They were able to negotiate a deal. They got the apology. And I think that was like the pinnacle of what is possible if everybody works together. There can be significant action, significant change that can come from the AFN, and they can speak on behalf of all Indigenous people within Canada. And I think that's been lost over the last number of years, of the amount of power and the strength of their voice, that the potential strength of their voice that they do have. I think I'm really hopeful that they will regain that, because they've lost a lot of footing over the last number of years. I think since the whole residential school file has kind of made its way through the years, and I'm really looking forward to what big issue they're going to tackle, because there are so many right now, and I think the AFN really needs to step up and become that voice and become really strong leaders within to represent First Nations people.
Nigan, what do you see as the big issues for whoever is elected national chief? There's been the internal, politics at the AFN, but we're also looking, on a federal level, there could be an election and a change in government there if the current polls are to believed. What do you think the job ahead is for whoever becomes national chief?
Well, of the published platforms, and only 3 of the 6 candidates have a real extensively published platform, everyone is talking about the revamping of the charter of the AFN. In fact, one candidate, Craig McEnroe, is even running for a kind of redundancy of the national chief position to only have the chief speak to the federal government. So it kind of makes the national chief position almost irrelevant, or maybe an intermediary in some way. And so everyone's talking about the charter of the AFN, revamping the charter. And that's the things that Kerry's speaking about in terms of revamping the kind of internal workings of the AFN. Everybody has their own particular issues. Like, for instance, Sheila North is talking about suicide and addictions. Cindy Woodhouse is talking about CFS and policing. David Pratt's talking a lot about health and about communications between the chiefs. But the real big ticket item, I think, will be on the self-sufficiency of the AFN. That's something that really hasn't come up, because the problem with the AFN, of course, is something Reginald Belrose spent a great deal of time talking about in the interview with you, is the fact that the AFN has entered a kind of critical phase, a kind of emergency phase in terms of funding. And as a result, the organization has really been hampered, and it's a large part due to some of the scandals that have taken place. And the question is will the AFN ever be a economically self-sufficient model? Up to this point, there really is no candidate that's been able to suggest one. And will that come out in this election? Well, it hasn't in the past, but let's hope that there's change coming in the future.
Kerry Nigan, only a couple of weeks to go before the vote. Great to talk with you about this.
Amiigwech, yeah.